And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, I'm going to be talking about the women's basketball team and their rousing success overseas. A lot of people, they didn't really like this Olympics team, mainly because Caitlin Clark wasn't on the Olympic team, but, wrong slide. Why isn't it popping up? All right, anyways, regardless, like the Olympics, the women's team, they've always been a very, very dominant team. And, they're arguably the best sort of organization, I guess you could say, outside of, okay, for some reason this isn't showing, which I don't understand. All right, there we go. I don't know why that didn't show. I'm sorry for that. But again, he's the women's basketball team for the United States, arguably one of the best women's organizations in sports, period. Of all the if you want a team that defines dominance, that's the women's team. A lot of people, they think men's basketball is the dominant one, right? It's actually the women's basketball that's more dominant than the men's. Yeah, the men's side, overseas and international play is sort of catching up to United States, and there are more players internationally making the NBA and participating in these, teams outside of the United States. But for the women's side, it's not really all that many people overseas. You have to remember that there are some countries that don't even have a women's basketball program. But since the United States was one of the since they were made so early in their time, the team was made in 1936. And actually, no, I lied. The team wasn't made in 1936. They were made in 1990s or something like that. The organization was founded in the 90s, and ever since then, the women's basketball team for the United States, they've never lost a game. They've literally been undefeated since their conception. And that's insane just to think about. And most of their wins are blowout wins. The most recent game that they played against the French, I think that was the closest game in women's basketball that I ever watched. One of the biggest reasons why women's basketball for the United States didn't get that many viewers and didn't get much viewership was because of the lack of Caitlin Clark, as well as the lack of competition compared to every other team. The United States was just so much better and so much taller than a majority of the women's teams, that were competing in these Olympics. And literally the last game that they played went down to the wire against the French team, where there was a French player, she was attempting a 3, but her foot was on the line, so it was a 2, and she ended up making the shot. If it was a 3, the game would have been into overtime. And we might have a different result, we might not. But again, that was a very, very close game. And one of the closest games that I watched, and which is crazy to think about considering how the women's basketball team has been around since the 90s. And that was their closest game. They have yet to lose. According to this article that was written 5 days ago, the women's basketball team has won 61 consecutive games in Olympic contests, and they recorded a record 8 straight gold medals that this previous Olympic run. They have yet to lose, and that's really crazy to think about, because it's when we talk about when we talk about United States basketball, we only think of the men's side and just how dominant the men are in the sport. We do not even think about how much more dominant the women are than the rest of the men. These women hoop. These women can hoop. They never lose. And it's really crazy to think about how the women's side, the side that gets slandered and scrutinized a lot, ends up being the team that ends up winning every single time. If you want a guaranteed gold medal, just root for the United States women's basketball team, and you're almost guaranteed to win it every single time. And it's when are they going to stop? It doesn't seem like they're slowing down, and it doesn't really seem like the world is catching up quick enough to these guys, especially now that Caitlin Clark is in the league. I don't know if there's going to be anyone that beats the women's USA team. Like, if anyone beats the United States women's basketball team in the Olympics, that will be like the biggest headline in the entire Olympics. Straight up, United States women's basketball team loses and ends their streak of consecutive wins, because like 60 plus consecutive wins is ridiculous. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that they've just been so ahead of everybody, because, you know, these Olympics, they happen every 4 years. So every single 4 years, it's most likely going to be a different team. The fact that they've been undefeated for this long is insane. And it just really shows just how talented the women are in the United States, and just how talented these WNBA players are when compared to Olympic players that play for women's basketball. Like, it's staggering. And women's basketball, they just came back from, you know, playing in the Olympics. And, you know, since they just came back from playing in the Olympics, they still have to finish out their regular season. And I'm just going to go ahead and look at some of the teams that are like either in a competing spot in the WNBA or are doing really well despite their players being on an Olympic journey, I guess you could say. I'm going to call it an Olympic journey because why not? And like the United, like, there was the break. Obviously, you know, they had All-Star break. So the break between, like, you know, the All-Star break and these Olympics, they're more or less the same. And the WNBA is set to restart once again on, well, today actually at 9 p.m. The Sparks, they play the Liberty at 9 o'clock. And, you know, a little bit earlier, the Mystics will play the Lynx. And a little bit earlier, the Sky is going to play the Mercury, in case any of you guys are interested. And most of these teams, they're probably going to have to readjust to having, well, not really readjust, but they're going to have to try and get their chemistry back again. It's not the same team that they were playing on. So let me know in the comments who you guys think is going to end up winning the WNBA championship. I have my money on the Liberty. I always root for the Liberty because, I mean, let's face it, the Liberty are arguably, you know, the best team in all of the Eastern Conference. In fact, right now they have the best record in all of the Eastern Conference, and it seems like they're going to make the postseason. Like, it really does seem like that's what's going to be the case. But again, anything can happen in this league. Right now, if you're wondering where the Indiana Fever are, they're actually ranked third in the standings compared to being dead last at one point. So that's improvement. And we're going to see just how great these players are. And that's probably, like, you know, the biggest reason why you didn't hear any sort of news about Caitlin Clark. It was the fact that they were on an all-star break. So just going to go ahead and throw that out there. So now we're at the final segment of the podcast. And in this final segment, I'm going to talk about Steph Curry and his status with the Warriors, because there was new news that just ended up breaking out. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk a little bit about that right after this short break.